Alright, so this is the kit here. It's going to come pretty much like this. You got two stepper brackets. You've got the two Y carriage brackets, the X carriage brackets, the tensioners, the bed tabs, and then the Y limit switch bracket, and then a set of cables and cable clips, and all of the screws and sub brackets for each one. So basically what you want to do here when you're getting ready to assemble the kit, disassemble the original one obviously, and this extrusion rail will be loose, and don't take the outer rails off. So what I do is I have a ruler here. It's 18-inch ruler, and these rails are approximately 18 inches long. So what I do is I put a mark at 9 inches, lay the ruler right there in the middle, and then I mark at the 9-inch increment there to mark the middle of the extrusion on both sides, and then I do the same with the X bracket. Okay, so then what you're going to want to do is the first thing you're going to do when your old kit is disassembled, you can take the L brackets, or the Y-axis brackets. This is, we have an R and an L. The right one doesn't have the limit switch stop on it, and the left one does. So as you can see, this one doesn't have the limit switch bracket. So what you're going to want to do is, these are somewhat loose. You don't undo the eccentric nuts. These are Loctited. You never need to undo those. The only ones you want to loosen are the top standoff nuts. You can back them off close to the end of the screw, just like this, just enough to get some play in the wheels like that. Okay, so then the right one will simply go, once that's loose like that, the whole assembly can go over the top like that. Okay, so once you have that on there like that, you need a 7mm wrench and then a Allen wrench here. So you can kind of put your finger on the back side. Get this out of the way. This is the hardest one to do because you don't have access to the back so easily. But then you can kind of just get it snug just by putting your finger on the back side of it first, and then once it's somewhat snug with your finger, the angle of the wrench can help you get behind it a little easier. And then you just hold it with your Allen right here like this, and then you can snug it down. Don't go crazy with it. It's not going to go nowhere. Just do the same thing with the other side. Hold it with the one, and then you kind of, snug it down. Okay. So then once it's snugged down like that, these should be stable. Now you use a 7/16 wrench on the eccentrics, and the one on the right side I spin clockwise into the extrusion. So just get on it like this, and you see all this play here. So we're going to take that up here. So you spin it in until you feel the play start to go away, and then you'll feel some friction on the wheels. Then the left one, I go counterclockwise to swing in. So you swing that one in counterclockwise until the play goes away. So there. So now I've got some friction on these wheels. And you want to take the time to get, you want to feel a little bit of resistance on the wheels, not too much, just a little bit. If you got too much, you can back it back off. Take a little time to get it, tension just right. You can always go on it later after the kit's installed and snug them up a little more too if you want. But basically, once you have those swung in, there's going to be no more play at all. And that's how you install all of the carriages. They will all work the same way. So yeah, you'll obviously want to make sure you're not moving around once you center everything. So once you have your Y brackets on, you bring the extrusion rail all the way up, and then there's tongue and groove on the bottom that the extrusion rail will be held in place by the tongue and groove there. And then this screw here on the top, there's a threaded insert that goes inside the rail. You're going to want to keep those from the original kit, and they'll thread in just like the original does, and keep your X extrusion rail up. So then once that's on, go ahead and install your X carriage the same way, and then center everything with your marks that you made on the rails. I used a little tape to hold them there and keep them from moving around while you're installing the cable. That's one little trick that I do. There's several other ways you can do it to keep things held. There's little clamps can help too. If you can, you know, rubber bands, there's another way to do it. But so, and once you have those installed, your carriage is installed, and then your rail comes up from the bottom, then you're going to want to install your idlers on the Y carriages. So they have to go in afterward. So there's a spacer and then the idler that goes on where the screw. So it comes like this, and all you have is a screw. So you're going to need to take all of your idlers and spacers off of your original kit, and that's, you're going to be using those from the original kit. So right here I have an original tensioner. You're going to be using all 4 tensioner spacers on both tensioners. So 2 of your spacers go on one of the Y-axis brackets, and then 2 of the other spacers go on the other Y-axis bracket. And then on your other tensioner, 2 spacers go on the rear left tensioner, and then the other 2 spacers go on the rear right tensioner. And the 4 idlers are also used in the same place. So you have 6 of them on each, or 3 on each side. So there's 2 on your original Y carriage on both sides, and then there's 2 on each of your tensioners on each side. Sorry, there's 8 tensioners on each, on left and right. So those are the only parts you're going to want to save. So then you can install your tensioners afterwards. So here's how your tensioners come. So when you get those, you put the spacer and idler on, and then the nut. Spacer, idler, and then the nut. And then this bolt here screws into the top threaded insert that the original tensioner had been threaded into. So keep the tensioner on the top side of both of your rails where the tensioners were. You don't need the bottom ones, so those will be extra. And then so that's how those go. And you want to have them when you're installing the cable, you want to have the tensioners moved inward. That means the outer end of it you want tipped inward. Right now I have my cable tensioned and installed correctly with proper tension on it. So when you install a cable for the first time, you're going to want to be able to take up some slack. So don't have your tensioners all the way out. Move them in so that when your cable is going to go slack a couple times after the first few prints, you're going to loosen that screw up and back the tensioner out to take that slack up. It's only going to happen probably maybe 3 up to 4 times possibly, and then the cable will stop going slack on you like that. That's just natural stretch break-in period for the cable. So don't have your tensioners all the way in. You want to do them on both sides. Tip the brackets inward. Okay. So then, once your tensioners are on, and they look like this, you got nut, idler, spacer, okay? Nut, idler, spacer on both sides. And then bring the slotted nut and bolt, the idler, the whole idler, bring it in as far as it'll go on both sides. And then tighten them. Don't worry about squaring yet, okay? So that's all those slotted ones are for, is for squaring. Okay, so then once you have all that set, you can remove your stepper brackets, get rid of your old ones, and then you can put on the new ones. Okay, so there's a set of M3 screws that will attach to the dampers, and then another, there's 4 of them. So 2 of them to attach to the damper, to the stepper bracket, and then there's 2 more screws that attach the damper to the stepper. So, and then I've got color coded here. There's 2 different length screws here. So you want the short one on the bottom and the long one on the top. So it just simply slides over this bracket here and the extrusion end. And then the short one goes up from the bottom, and then the top one is long one that goes through the top. Okay, you just kind of push it on and center it as best as you can. And when you tighten down, here's what I recommend: when you tighten the damper to the stepper, tighten it just a second. You want to tighten it through the stepper bracket hole, okay? Because that will help align the damper and keep the stepper positioned and located in the stepper bracket, and everything will be much better in line. And that's how that goes. So you got stepper bracket, you do that on both sides, and then the bed tabs, those are pretty self-explanatory. You know, get rid of the old 3D printed ones if you have them still. And then you got a set of cables. 2 of these, 1 for each spool. I have another video explaining how to wrap the spools, and then once you wrap them, you put the cable clips on to keep them from coming back off. So then, you know, you don't have to take your spool off your stepper, but you want to, you know, just make sure that you get your clip on there, and then everything is centered and installed. Now you're ready to do cable installation. So once you have the cables kind of laid out generally where they're supposed to be, okay, so you center, you have everything centered with your marks, and then you go around your idlers. The short side will be on the inside. Okay, so the short side of the cable, you go around the spool and up to the X carriage bracket. So when you come up to it with your cable, I like to hold it up to the carriage and mark right where the cable block is. So I take a marker and I mark where the cable block is on both sides. And then after the cable after that, then I take the rear cable block bracket and do the same thing. The screws here will come out and mount this thing to the back of the carriage. Okay, and then you want to mark the cables where they're going to be, where the anchor blocks are, and you can actually remove these cable blocks and secure the cable to them before you actually attach it to the carriage. So that's why I have this off. So you can actually, put this in loosely, mark the cables, and then, wherever that mark is, that's where you want the notch of the cable brackets to be sitting. And that's with all of the cables in tracking on the idlers correctly. It's not as hard as it sounds, but that's what you want to do with that. And then once you have that the cable blocks, the cables attached to the cable blocks, then you can begin to apply tension with your tensioners in the back. So you want to kind of get them about as tight as you can without using your tensioners. And then once you do, then you can bring your tensioners out, and that will supply enough tension to go ahead and remove the clips from your spools. And then everything will be tracking, and you'll be ready to square the machine. Okay, and that's basically the calibration for squareness. From, you know, you want this rail to be perfectly perpendicular to this rail, and vice versa on this side. So the rail can actually move in this direction, and that's what these slotted idler screws are for. So by moving this screw out, the one on the right, if you move it that way towards the back of the printer, that will essentially shorten up the cable and bring your Y or your X axis, it will cause it to move this way. That's when you push this screw on the right out. That's how you square it in this direction. Now the opposite is true with the other idler. If you move this screw out, it will cause your Y extrusion to go this way. So that is something you want to check after you have the cable done. I find that it's not 100% critical to get it like exactly perfect. I've gotten it really close. I got it close and I'm fine with it. I'm not, you know, going crazy with it. I have other calibration videos that I'm doing. I'll do a more in-depth calibration video on that too. But I'm just trying to get a little bit of a explanation for how to go about doing the kit installation here. And so go ahead and give me a message if you guys have any questions. Oh, one last thing. The Y limit switch. So that just goes right here, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Just remove the original screw that's in there, and just put this one on. Just remove the original bracket, put the original screw in, bolt that down, relocate the wires over to the left side of and you're done. You know, that's all there is to that. So anyway, I just wanted to get that. So this is about what the kit's going to look like when you get it. So just let me know if you have any questions. All right, guys, take care. All right, guys, so I just wanted to add one last thing here about getting the cable attached to the actual cable blocks. So here's the rear bracket. So I've got the end of the cable, so this would be the end you have marked basically, and then so you go through the hole, one of the holes like this. Okay, so there's two holes. The left one goes for the left side of the cable, and the right one goes for the right side of the cable basically. So the end goes through like that, and then I take it and I put it in the V groove, and then I kind of pinch it off with my thumb like that. Okay, I fold it over like this, and then you want to wrap the tag end of that cable. Just go one time clockwise like that, and then when you're ready to crank it down, I keep my thumb held it down. I kind of pinch it against the groove there, and then you just go clockwise with the screw head, and you don't have to crank it too tight. Snug is fine, and that's it. And then the cable is attached just like that. So you always want to go clockwise so that when you're tightening the screw head, it's pulling with the cable instead of, you know, pushing the cable out. So I just wanted to show you how to do that. You can kind of, you know, leave them a little bit on the, you know, looser side when you're getting things adjusted, and so yeah, make sure when your cables are on, they're in the groove. They're not like off to the side like this. You want them in the groove like that. And then you do the same on all of the other brackets the same way. And then once you have your two cables attached to this bracket, this is the rear cable bracket, you can simply attach the cable or the whole bracket to the X carriage, and then the screws will go in from the front of it. And then the front cable brackets are separate, and you basically treat them the same way, except you do them independently. So I just wanted to show you all that. Okay, thank you.